After the previous session, I feel a serious need for optimism in this one, and hopefully we'll provide you some of that while we talk about AI and impact of AI. I was reflecting on the Pope's passing yesterday, and I realized that my father would have been exactly his age if he were alive. But he passed away very early on because of an undetected pneumonia. We had, I remember this was 27 years ago in Hyderabad. We took him to a bunch of doctors. They couldn't diagnose the pneumonia in his lungs, and despite a number of chest x-rays. And then by the time it was detected, it was too late. So this was underlying the reason a few years later, I decided to work with Prashant and create this company called Cure.ai. We incubated Cure.ai at Fractal to diagnose people for illnesses, looking at X-rays, CT scans, MRIs. So first thing we did was to look at tuberculosis. Tuberculosis, India, as you know, is the tuberculosis capital of India. And we created a solution that could detect TB. Now it's operational across 70 different countries. It has touched 25 million lives as of right now, diagnosing for TB, lung cancer, COVID, things like that. 17 FDA clearances. Okay. And now coming to the second most important topic on AI after healthcare, I think if you ask a whole host of leaders around the world, which are the two industries that will be most disrupted, most positively impacted by AI, you always get the same standard answers: healthcare, and the next one, which is education. And now today we have an eminent speaker on this topic of how AI is going to change education and ed tech. Thank you, John, for being here.
Thank you, Srikanth.
Curriculum Associates is a very well-known brand in the US, serving 14 million students across the US, but not many from this audience probably know much about it. So would you like to tell us a little bit about what Curriculum Associates does, and maybe even share your story of what got you interested in joining, because I thought it was very powerful.
Sure. Thanks, Srikanth. Yeah, so CA's been around for quite a while. It was founded in 1969. It began as a printed educational materials company. And over time, as technology advanced and schools were interested in using technology, CA had the ability to move into doing what we do today, which is building our iReady product for K through 8 students, so kids who are 6 years old to about 14 years old. At the heart of what we do is we assess students where they are, and then we personalize instruction to that. So that might be they read at a particular grade level. They might be in 5th grade, but they might read at a 4th grade level. And we do mathematics as well, so they might have different math skills. And then the software will tailor those instructions to them. But that really is at the heart of our mission, is helping kids thrive in school. If they're behind, to help them get to the right level or above. If they are excelling, to help them continue to excel. And for me, my draw to it was really twofold. So I've been in and around education in different ways for the last many years. I was a college adjunct for a while, teaching tech to business students, so kind of demystifying that. I served on the board of a nonprofit in America called Bottom Line that helps first-generation college students get into college and stay there and graduate. And that was close to my heart because I'm also a first-generation college student. No one in my family had gone to college. And even more so, if you had said to 11-year-old me, "Will you go to college?" he would have said, "No way." Because when I was a little kid, I had a motor learning disability. So I couldn't draw circles or make shapes. And it turns out when you're in 3rd grade, that's kind of important. And I was always going to occupational therapy and going off and learning different things. And so I really hated school, to the point where as a kid, I was smart enough to realize that I could turn my mom's car lights on at night so the battery would be dead, and she couldn't take me to school the next day. And I was like that until 5th grade. And a teacher changed my life. She took an interest in me. She found things that I was excited about, encouraged me to learn about them and talk to the class about them. And that truly led me to college and grad school and ultimately here.
Like you got a teacher, I think every student deserves a teacher who believes in him or her, and that unlocks their potential. With AI, it feels like AI could be that teacher that meets the student where she or he is, and then give them exactly what they need to progress, build that curiosity, and eventually accomplish wonderful things in the world. So what is the true North Star for Curriculum Associates, the product that you're building? What's the true North Star for that?
I mean, for us, it really is that mission of helping students succeed and thrive. And we firmly believe that AI is there to help teachers teach, not to replace them in the classroom. One example of that is we have a technology. It came as part of an acquisition, a company called Soapbox Labs. It's a custom-built AI model for speech AI. And what it does is it lets the student speak to the software, and it will gauge the rhythm of their speech, how they pronounce different sounds, and give the teacher a roadmap to help that student be better at speaking, being more confident, increasing the flow of their speech, helping them pronounce things that they maybe struggle with. That's a great example of helping teachers teach. In America, teachers are increasingly dealing with larger and larger class sizes, are increasingly dealing with more pressures to get more things done. This is a way to help them focus on the students and let them have the best tools to do that. And that's really our North Star, is how do we help students succeed and how do we help teachers get them there?
Now, when you sell this AI-infused technology to the schools, do you see any challenges in adoption? And how do you sell the AI technology in order to drive overall adoption of this technology? For example, you spoke about, earlier you spoke about how the questions get generated and how the assessments get generated and the questions are now AI generated. Do you tell the schools that this is how it's generated? How do you actually sell this technology to the schools in a way that drives adoption?
Yep, yeah, and I have a question for you on this too, because I know you deal with a lot of different companies. So the thing that's been really interesting for us is when we go to schools, we don't have to talk about AI, we get asked about it. Teachers in particular will say, hey, I've been playing around with this ChatGPT thing. Have you ever thought about using it for, something in iReady? And so we think about AI in a couple of different ways. So one is to help us create better content for classrooms. Again, every student learns differently. And part of the magic of technology is when it was just a book, and if you had a learning disability, if you had dyslexia, that book didn't really help you. But with software, we can deliver that content in different ways. We can deliver different content. And so we've run experiments internally, like you mentioned, to create content using GenAI with a human editor at the end to make sure that it is appropriate for the grade level, that it matches what the student needs, it helps the teachers. And so we think that internally, using it to help us create better content is one really powerful use, in addition to things like our speech AI to help actually do assessment and learn. So my question for you, Srikanth, is you work with a lot of Fortune 500 companies. Some of them are tech companies. So I'm going to go out on a limb and say they're probably fairly AI savvy. But what about the non-tech companies? What are they asking you? Where are they on the AI adoption curve?
It's fair to say that every major company in the world now thinks of itself as a tech company. This trend was started by Uniqlo, I think, in 2016, when the CEO of Uniqlo said, we are not a fashion company, we're a technology company. Then the L'Oreal CEO said in 2018, that we are going to transition from a beauty company to a beauty tech company. Then then Ajay Banga, who was then the CEO of MasterCard, he said, we are not a financial services company, we are a tech company that happens to do financial services. So it is a big change that's happening around the world that AI is becoming center stage. They're becoming tech-centric and AI-centric eventually. And therefore, there's enormous amount of interest inside big organizations to embrace this, because they're also driven by top line and bottom line considerations. And if AI can help you drive greater revenue and get greater efficiency and do things more accurately and even improve customer experience in the process, I mean, people would love it. Except that getting this done inside organizations is not easy. And one of the things that at Fractal we think of doing is that, okay, we have to translate this massive AI excitement in the world into enterprise performance. That gap is huge, and companies do recognize, and sometimes they ask us to come and help them translate that excitement into real performance inside the organizations.
Yep.
So that's really how I see these companies talking about. Now, I'll come back to you with the question, John. I remember the 2023 release of Gemini 1.5. I think it was 1.5. In that release documentation, there's a fantastic example that I saw, which is, here's the example for all of you. There's a skier who's on the top of a slope, and he's at rest. And then he comes down all the way to the down the slope, and now you have to calculate his velocity when he's down at the ground level. And you're given the height of the ski slope as well as the length, and then you have to figure out what the velocity would be. So it's a question of converting potential energy into kinetic energy, right? So mgh is a potential energy, and half mv square is a kinetic energy. You have to calculate v based on that formula, right? So that's what the question is. It's sort of standard 9th grade, 10th grade, maybe 11th grade question. And when you ask Gemini this question, it's a student answer. The student makes a small mistake in that, and the idea is for Gemini to figure out the answer, which is all handwritten, and then find out the error in that, and then provide the right answer. And it does an amazing job. So I was wondering, do you see a value of driving teacher productivity? Because selling it as AI is one thing, but if you say that, look, hey teachers, you spend so much time in grading papers, but now you can spend, let's say, 10% of time grading papers, does that sound like an interesting proposition, and do you see any traction for that?
Yeah, I think that's really the key to building products with AI, is not to lead with the buzzwords, but to actually lead with the real impact, the real productivity boost that it brings. And for us, as we think about how to help teachers maximize their time in the classroom, maximize their time working with students, that's what we do. There's a whole part of we have 14 million students in the US. We also have 1 million teachers who use our software every day. And we have functionality for them. We have teacher tools, and we're building on top of that. We think AI has a really valuable use there as a kind of a way to guide them, to maximize their productivity, but also to guide them to the right things for students. Because again, we're all about personalized instruction, so the more we can help teachers get there, the better.
Okay. You set up a GCC in India a few years ago, and you're doing some really cutting-edge work here. It's not the quantity of people, but the quality of work that you're doing here is amazing. And one of the things that I was reflecting on as I was thinking about this is my conversation with a person from Wells Fargo. I think it was about 4 years ago. The first time he told me that Bangalore for us is not a back office of Wells Fargo. It is another office of Wells Fargo, just like it is a Bay Area office or our office in North Carolina, or it's one more office. So we think of Bangalore as just one more office rather than think of it as a back office. And that's when it struck me that this difference is profound, that you think of every office of a GCC as a potential space for innovation, for doing game-changing work, and even global roles. So if you could tell a little bit about the experience of you setting up a GCC in India, seeing the traction and the kind of work that you're doing, and also having global roles out of this location, will be very helpful for the audience here.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, so for us, and it's not even been 2 years for us with the GCC, what drove us to create the office in Bangalore was a need for talent. So if you remember those old cartoons where they have a scroll and it kind of rolls onto the ground, that's our roadmap. we have a ton of things that we need to build for schools today and for the future, and we need great people to do it. And that's what brought us to Bangalore, was the talent. Because we have all these different roles: AI, software engineering, data that we need to build. The other is, to what you said, is it's one team. We went into this from the very beginning saying and building the team so that it was just part of what CA does. There's no work in India that is different than the US. India is not a substitute for like an engineering contract firm. The teams in India look just like the teams in the US. And the other thing that was really important to me running the tech team is that we would have global leadership. And it's very cool that we now have Sumi, who's in the audience, who is running IT globally for CA. We have 2,700 employees in India, Ireland, and the United States, and she's responsible for all of them. She sits in Bangalore. Her team's in the US and in India as well. And I think that's really important. I think that's a really important part of how we build the culture in the team, is to really treat it as one team, and that any work can be done anywhere.
What's the most game-changing innovation that's come out of your Bangalore team, if there's such a thing, if you could share?
Yeah, there have been a lot of really cool things that have come from the team. I think one of the first things we did is, obviously, we had not worked with a team in India before, and data privacy is really critical in our business. We take our responsibility to protect student data very, very seriously. And so we needed to make sure that we had all the security in place to work across geographic boundaries, to keep data in the United States. And so the first thing that the team did is actually build the infrastructure to support themselves, and actually pioneered a lot of things at CA in doing that. And then the team is now working on everything we work on. The new e-reader that we have for our product. We made our first 2 hires now for the AI team in Bangalore, and they'll complement a team in the US and Ireland to do that. And there's just a lot of, now the team's, again, it's not even quite 2 years, but now the team is scaling up. It's been going really well.
So if one thing is clear, the role of AI in education is going to keep going up. Mm-hmm. So as you scale up your AI team and think of game-changing innovation with AI, how are you thinking of talent for this AI team, and would that be largely Bangalore-based because it's harder to find talent in the US, or how do you think about this problem in general?
I think a lot of those hires will be in Bangalore, and they're to some of the earlier talks about different roles like prompt engineering, and we're building an entire data practice in Bangalore in large part to help power our AI efforts. And I think, again, that comes back to we need to have the talent to build those things. We will build on top of commercial solutions that are out there, but we also need the ability to build our own things. In fact, the speech AI engine that I mentioned was entirely built by us. And so we need to have the talent to do that. And we know that, and we've seen that from the hire we've done. We have more than 100 people now in the office that the talent's here in India.
Understood. When you think about the future of, what's your best case vision for future of AI in education? What do you think of, let's say 5 years out? I mean, we've already seen things like Khan Migo, which has been a game-changing example of AI in education, and the idea of flipped classrooms, and that's getting even more powered by AI now. What is your true vision? What is your vision for, let's say, when AI is really, really good, 2 or 3 years from now, we have reached that AGI moment. What do you see? What role do you see AI playing in education, and how do you see the experience of education changing for everyone?
I go back to, I've lived through a few different shifts when it comes to education. It wasn't all that long ago that if you had to look something up, you went to a card catalog, and you had to find a book. And then the internet democratized information and made education a lot more accessible to people everywhere. And now AI has the ability to not only make it more accessible because it's trained on all this data, but also to meet students where they are. Everyone learns differently. The way that I learned math, or I actually did that physics problem, I think, in freshman year in high school, it was different than other people. The way I understood it, the way I processed it. And I think a big part of the promise of AI in education is being able to meet students where they are, to tailor the learning experience, still, again, led by the teacher, but tailor it to what they need so that they can succeed. Like everybody goes through school, and this kind of historically been a very standardized approach. If we could make that unique to the students, it would be incredibly powerful.
So one last question on AI, especially one of the hot topics across the world is whether you can use AI tools in doing your project work in schools. Whether you can use the popularly available tools to, let's say, generate images or write some of the content or edit some of your content or proofread some of your content. So you could do grammar check or spell check on your word processors, that was okay. But now if you use AI to actually clean up your first draft, that may not be okay in some schools. So what is your take on AI in education? Should students be allowed to use these tools and learn these tools, or should they do it outside the classroom, outside the context of the school?
So when I was a college adjunct, I focused on making sure students understood the topics and that they could engage in critical thinking. So I was less worried about them memorizing things and more worried about them applying the knowledge. And I think that's ultimately where we need to find the dividing line with AI in classrooms is use it as a tool, use it as research, use it to create your slide decks or whatever it is, but it's no substitute for teaching students how to think and how to apply, how to synthesize the knowledge that they get.
I heard, I read this interesting story in a newspaper recently that this is happening in a management consulting firm, which is famously known for first principles thinking, right? You ask a question and you do a structured thinking and sort of dimensionalize the problem. That's consulting firms do really well. But this was reported in the paper that the partner was telling the analyst, please don't do first principles thinking, just use ChatGPT to guess the first draft of the recommendations. And they ran a study which is very interesting that one of the Nasscom reports that was published last year, they actually ran, which was done with Bain, apparently it was done with Bain. So they ran a AI check on that, and it turned out that the AI check said that 95% of that was probably generated by ChatGPT type of AI software. So if that's happening in let's say in consulting firms, why is it, should we not teach our kids to use these tools more effectively right away? And do you think it'll come in the way of learning these first principles?
Yeah, I think that, so in that example, like I really hope the consulting companies are applying some customized analysis of the companies that they're working with. Some of the content can come that way. I think that for students, you go back to something Professor Scott Galloway has said, which is, it's really less that AI will take your job, it's more that somebody who knows AI will take your job. And I think it's really important that AI literacy, that using these tools, using them as a way to like leapfrog your knowledge is very important. But it is not a substitute for critical thinking and just understanding the topic. So I wanted to ask you, Srikanth, so obviously you live in this world across lots and lots of companies. Like, what do you think the next few years look like for AI adoption in companies, or just AI adoption period? Like, what might surprise people about what's coming?
See, what I'm seeing every day, and what I'm sure some of you are also witnessing every day, is that the cost of inferencing is dramatically dropping down. So it was 2 years ago, it was $36 per million tokens. With DeepSeek, it came down to 50 cents per million tokens. It's going down by another 80% this year and another 80% the following year. So at some point, very soon, it'll be so cheap that multiple API calls on any of these models is going to be really, really inexpensive. And at that point of time, if you're getting such intelligence coming out so cheaply, it'll be irresponsible not to use AI in whatever you do. So I think that's something we have to realize, that things which are moving at faster than Moore's law are going to become so inevitable so quickly that anyone who ignores it today is doing it at their peril. So that's what I feel is a real danger of not implementing AI now. And if you feel like, look, I can wait for another year or two, it'll be probably too late. And the biggest opportunity for companies that I see is reimagining their business process with AI. It's not that you have an existing business process and you're saying, okay, here's a little piece of that puzzle, can I automate it? That is okay. I think that'll give you some results. But if you reimagine it grounds up, in an AI-driven world where prediction is cheap, where knowledge is cheap, where AI will be agentic and can reason, think, plan, and act in the real world, how should you rethink and reimagine the entire process? That is the question we have to answer, and answer faster than before. And even if some of those elements of that are not yet there because AI is not good enough or it's not capable enough, we have to create the infrastructure or the scaffolding for it to work in future. And that's really the big opportunity that I don't think everyone is seeing right now.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think companies are not doing enough to create the environment for people to embrace it and use it.
On this note, I think we've had a great conversation. John, thanks for coming here.
Thanks, Srikanth.
I hope you have some sense of the excitement of AI in education and how AI could transform not just education, but other industries like healthcare and business in general. Thank you again for being here with us today.
Thanks, everyone.